Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Nothing But Bangers, aka MBB, aka Bangers, aka I've got a couple turbo banger videos coming out over the next couple days, including this one. Also, look for a potential collaboration or two with some pretty awesome content creators, some that you may know. But let's get into what this video is going to be about. I'm sure you saw the thumbnail, and probably that's part of the reason why you clicked. But yes, we have received news on the competitive side of Pokemon TCG Pocket, and some people may not like it. Some people may quit because of it. But I'm going to give you a little bit more of an explanation as to what's going on with a couple of articles, actually a few articles of sources, as well as some background info. So let's not delay this any further. And again, if you want to get these turbo banger videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to leave a thumbs up so this video reaches more people, as well as my content. And let's get to it. So the story coming out over the past 8, maybe 10 hours, and this has kind of snuck under the radar. I think I might be one of the first content creators to talk about this, but Chris Brown, not that Chris Brown, not the Rihanna Chris Brown, no, not that one, but the Pokemon Chris Brown, actually came out and released some statements about the competitive side of Pokemon TCG Pocket. And if you want to check out his Twitter, you can do that. He is the director, global esports and events producer for Pokemon, so he's kind of a big deal. So what he says, you definitely have to take it at face value. But here's his Twitter/X page if you want to check it out. Let's get to the articles. In these articles, all of the headlines are they're kind of like doom scrolling. I'm not going to lie to you. But I think that there's more to this story. But this is going to be one of my first sources, and we'll kind of point out some of the things that were said. But basically, Pokemon Pocket has been out for about 4 months. And here's a little hint at my video that should be dropping in about, who knows when you're watching this, but it should be dropping by the 26th of February. It's going to go over the history of Pokemon Pocket. That's right. I've got it coming up. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to love it. You definitely want to check it out. But in these 4 months, there's been a lot of chatter about like the competitive side, because most of us are pretty aware that basically there's a competitive circuit for Pokemon games, whether it's like the VGC games, whether it's the trading card game, or whether it's Pokemon Go, that the PvP is literally like broken. Like there's so many messed up things with it, but they still have a world tour. It's a whole nother issue. But regardless, and I've played Pokemon Go for like years, so it is what it is. But anyway, so this was the statement that they released. Chris Brown revealed the plans, or lack of them, right, to add Pokemon TCG Pocket to its competitive circuit during an interview with VGC. Brown noted that even though they're always looking at different titles, there are currently no plans for competitive Pocket, at least not in an official capacity. So what that basically is saying is you probably won't see Pokemon Pocket at Worlds or at your regionals with these other Pokemon events in the near future. However, when you scroll down, Brown noted for a second time that they're always looking at things after making that comment. So they're always looking at like, hey, is there maybe something to this? Even though we said no right now, what about later on? And so the door isn't closed on competitive Pocket for good. But again, you have to look at the inception of this game. It's 4 months old. Okay, like I know some of you may not have experience in trading card games, but literally some trading card games fail in 4 months. Okay, like they literally stop existing in 4 months. Like if you go back to the Pokemon original TCG, if you go back to Yu-Gi-Oh, if you go back to Magic the Gathering, if you look at some of the newer card games, Flesh and Blood, MetaZoo, which has died and then came back, you look at a lot of these trading card games, Disney Lorcana, they don't have like a fleshed out like competitive side all the time ready to go. Okay, and so like this shouldn't be a surprise. And also like the games, if you compare those games in the first 4 months of their existence, some of them released like one set in the first 4 months. We have hundreds of cards, 4 sets, supposedly I guess for technically, I guess we have 3, right? But we're going to have that 4th, quote unquote mini set, which I guess you could call 2 of them mini sets and 2 of them pretty big sets. Either way, you've had potentially 4 expansions in this game so far, as we get close to the end of February, when we all anticipate the 4th expansion coming out to Pokemon Pocket. So like, don't stress. Like, this is not the end of the world at all. This is just where we are right now. And again, like, they kind of mention in this article that like there's some issues with like balancing and like how there's some things that feel like a little bit overtuned, and so like that kind of is a little bit of an issue, and things are gonna have to like get worked out before a competitive side is released. But again, like, I think it's just worth noting, like, this is still very early. Like, there's no reason to panic over this. Like, I think if you quit over this kind of announcement, like, you probably weren't really like into the game. Like, there's different ways to find joys in games, and if you're not finding joy in the game that you're playing, then like, take a break. It's okay. Right? Take a break. It's perfectly okay. Now, some of the articles and again, all these articles will be in the description. So if you want to check these out for yourself, take some more time to read them as opposed to me just kind of glossing through them. Like, feel free to do that. But again, the Japanese mobile gaming powerhouse DNA, that's the company, it's the company that pops up when you load up the game. But anyway, so like, some people are kind of describing this as like a blow to the competitive side of the game, right? Like, this is a blow to some people that are running tournaments. And like, I would just disagree with that and say, hey, it's good that they're not rushing it. In fact, this gives people like Ursiday, this gives people like the people that run the Pocket Legends League, there's so many people that are running tournaments. It gives them time to build up their community and really get things growing at a grassroots. Like, this might be a time where we look back on and say, man, I really miss those days when there were tournaments so often and like it was a fun, environment to be a part of, versus a competitive side where maybe we have like this, oh man, I got to go to regionals, I got to go to worlds, like I'm getting all sweaty, I got to have all the cards, I got to spend all this money. Like, we can relax. We can enjoy the game at our own pace right now. And so like, that's the one thing that I would kind of push back on. And yes, the game has made, what is it, $500 million in revenue? Like, that's crazy in just 100 days. And then again, 60 million downloads. Like, you look at this and like, obviously the game is a smash hit. Now, I will talk about this a little bit more in my video that's dropping later about the history of Pokemon TCG Pocket. And like, are there, bad things that have happened, or like maybe not so good things that have happened? Yes, there are. Okay. The game definitely has room for improvement. But again, I look at this and I'm like, hey, it's okay that, it's not going to the Pokemon World Championships roster. Like, I remember Pokemon Go literally like rolling out stat rebalances like at least 2 different times in like the first few months of that game's inception. Like, literally, people opened the app one day and like their Machamp was a different CP, combat power, right? So like, literally, you just look at this and you're like, hey, it's okay. In fact, why not, hey, hopefully they have like a leaderboard that gets introduced to the game in some form or fashion before we get some kind of competitive circuit. Even Pokemon Go had that, right? Like, when you look at a lot of these games, there's usually like a leaderboard. There's usually like a little, like some form of like a ranked ladder. And like, that happens usually before we see like regionals and like worlds, right? So, there's some people in the community that would push back on that being a thing. But I would be curious to really get their opinion. Like Raven, for example. I don't even know if Raven watches my content. Like, I probably doesn't. But like, I just wonder, like, Raven, for example, very much against ranked ladder because he feels like it makes the game a little bit too sweaty. It narrows the decks that people play, and it really like takes enjoyment out of the game compared to right now, where you can just queue into the random match queue with just about anything. So like, I get that point of view, but also like, if you ever want to see regionals or worlds, like, I think you kind of like have to have that, right? So anyways, just kind of going through this story again, it's probably going to miss out on like the worlds that are coming in 2025 that's supposed to take place in Anaheim, California in August. But again, like, I don't necessarily see this as like an all bad thing. So like, here's one more article before we kind of wrap things up. But again, no plans at the moment to add Pokemon Pocket to the competitive circuit. And again, like, I think this is one of the articles that like kind of like kind of bashed on Pokemon Pocket a little bit. They were like, hey, it's simplistic. It doesn't have resistances. I can't believe it doesn't have resistances. It doesn't, like, the weakness doesn't even matter. It's only 20 damage. Like, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of weird how, like, some people kind of like try to bash on the game. Like, I do think that, you know, like Pokemon in general, you know, if you're talking about the most difficult card games to play, Pokemon is never in the conversation. Like, as a top, like, oh my gosh, it's difficult. It's not. Okay, like, I'm just gonna, and like, this is coming from somebody who's been to nationals, who's won events in other card games, who I've got like 20 years, 25 years or something of playing card games at a pretty high level and traveling into events. And what I'm here to tell you is, like, nobody in their right mind goes to bed thinking, you know what, man, Pokemon, that's the hardest trading card game of all time. Like, they don't, okay? And like, there's a lot of reasons for that, okay? And I'm not gonna like take this video into that direction, but I just like, I don't think that there's any reason to gatekeep in the Pokemon community, like, oh, well, Pocket is just so simple, like, you know, the real trading card game. Like, dude, it's okay. They're both pretty, like, straightforward in a lot of ways. Like, the hardest thing in both games is deck building. Like, that's it, okay? But when you talk about other card games, that's just like one element, okay? So, like, again, you know, I read this article and I was just kind of like, you know, I don't necessarily agree with like how they're kind of like portraying Pokemon Pocket. And like, as I scan through this, as I'm kind of like talking to you guys, again, like, you know, I don't know that, you know, maybe I mixed up the articles. Maybe the second article was the one that was kind of like bashing it, you know, but again, like, I just kind of look at this. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, this is the one that bashed it. It's like, by completely eliminating energy cards, replacing with the energy zone, which automatically generates energy per turn, featuring smaller decks, easier victory conditions, and no mulligans. I can't believe it doesn't have a mulligan. Like, dude, it doesn't have a mulligan because you're guaranteed one basic every time you start a game. Like, hello? So again, you know, my final thoughts on this are like, hey, it's okay that there's not an immediate plan for this. I hope that they do listen to people that are in the community. Like, I know Ursi put out a pretty big tweet about like the number of people playing, the consistency of some of the best players and so on. But like, I do think that there are steps to get to that level. And I think that like, we're still in the infancy of this card game. And like, granted, hey, in 2 years, like, maybe the game doesn't exist. I don't know. Maybe the game doesn't exist in 2 years. Maybe it doesn't exist in a year. I don't know. Time will tell. But I think right now it's just too early, and this is no reason to panic. Continue to enjoy the game as you see fit. If you like playing, you know, Wigglytuff, Manaphy, go play it. If you like playing Dark Zone and like getting real sweaty with coin flips, with Executor EX, like, hey, go wear it out. Enjoy the game how you see fit. But I don't think that there's any cause or any reason to panic. I think that this is just pretty expected, and hopefully we continue to see improvements, and I hope they address some of the issues that are currently in the game, that again I will be talking about a little bit more in my next video. And that's another reason why you should stay tuned to the channel and come back for more. And until next time, peace.